not that one, but it's better. So, where was I? Oh yes. We had narratives of people, political violence, and global politics. So this is a bit past the introduction that I already read. I don't want to read again, since this is basically only for me. Fuck that. La, la, la. Okay. Where were we? The word individual itself rarely appears, either in higher theorizing or in feminist theorizing about political action or activity. In the late 90s, Daniel Byman and Kenneth Pollack, 2001. Okay, in the late 90s, the book is from 2001. I kind of agree that though 2001 can be said as late 90s, as long as it's before, 7/11? No, 9/11. Why don't meeting us? Oh, whatever, dates is not that important, but it should be day, month, year, from the smallest to the biggest, whatever. Daniel Byman and Kenneth Pollack suggested that it was analytically important to bring the individual back into theorizing global politics, suggesting that certain leaders clearly impacted the course of history. The giants still walk the earth. Oh wow, someone is mad. La, la, la. I'm fine with this. Byman and Pollack, evident. Giants, though, are all people with elite political power and almost all men. This narrow view excludes most people from higher analysis. Instead, feminist scholars have advocated multi-locational perspective on patriarchal forces. This is Young's 2000, which are capable of identifying people as actors. The system has multiple hierarchies and is characterized by multiple relations. Goldstein 2001. So we are trying to reanalyze individual in this case, and this is all fun and dandy until you realize that individuals and subjects are all male-coded, just say, ideas. They do not sprang out neutral, nothing, no idea in philosophy arrive neutral and stay that way. And just people like to, this is abused notion. Neutrality is not a thing. Ideas are not neutral, people are not neutral, and fuck the love of God, just because you're using, for example, a category. Now there's more life. Just because you're using a category doesn't mean that that category is neutral. I can use subject neutrally, but I really don't. Subject has always been made until the last century, and even then we had to fight to be subjects. So no. Okay. Now go back to this. This will mean, as we discussed in the introduction, seeing everyday women's lives as global politics and global politics as everyday women's lives. Why everyday women's and not everyday people? He talked about men with elite political power. I am fine with multi-locational perspective on patriarchal forces, but guys, men are slaves too. I mean, I don't wanna go there and say men's right because it's stupid. Men already have rights more than women, but I mean, if you're to talk about international politics and your problem is with individuals who make history versus common folder, common people, then common people are also men. I mean, Hegel saw the spirit of history walking through Vienna, got Napoleon, by the way, of course got Napoleon. I'm sorry, British people, I mean, they were on the wrong side of that one. On the other hand, Napoleon went to Italy and decided to, like, help the Pope? Fuck him. I'm kind of the fence on the guy. But my point here is that let's see what this is going. Certainly, history is full of stories in which women are said to have played a significant role in shaping macropolitics. Helena of Troy caused the Trojan War. No, she did not. Henry VIII dissatisfaction with his marriage to Catherine of Aragon led to his formation of the Anglican Church. I feel like she's making a point about what a woman's role is, but on the other hand, not even in the myth Helena of Troy caused the Trojan War. It was Paris days in Italian. Paris, I wanna say in English, and more technically, Eris, the goddess. So, okay. Regarding Catherine of Aragon, I'm unsure if a woman has a role, if it's just the incidental cause, let's just say. George W. Bush suggested that the United States invasion of Iraq and intervention in Iraq and Afghanistan were at least in part about taking care of oppressed women. Not even George W. Bush believed that one. I'm sorry. Also, why would you invade Afghanistan and Iraq to liberate oppressed women? This is not a good argument. Not even for them. But, okay. Moon contends that we need to begin by viewing event the most dispossessed women as players in the world politics and instruct that without jumping back from two opposite poles of self-agency and victimhood, a middle ground must be found. 1997. So the notation system is in APA, so I don't have the title of the book. It's fine to be later in the book in the index, but I don't have access to that now. What I want to say here is that we have a problem. Without jumping back from two opposite poles of self-agency and victimhood, a middle ground must be found. Okay, let's see what this calls. Whether the people under examination are international actors in the traditional sense, such as leaders of state governments, or unimportant in traditional terms of interstate relative power, a feminist interpretation of the personal as international has a lot to offer. It suggests that women's choices and women's lives matter in global politics. If women's choices and women's life matter, then government and media portraits of women's choices have implications beyond the gender subordination inherent in those portrayals. They not only distort how we understand and treat women, but also how we understand and try to solve political violence. Wait. Since when there is dualism here implied? Let's go back. We are with there must be understood like agency in world politics must be understood as not just the poles of self-agency and victimhood. Okay, I'm there. So you need to find a middle ground that is less understandable because you have to find a mix of both. That's what it's saying. She's saying, or he's saying, whoever is Moon. That's what they're saying. They need to find a middle ground between actors only as subjects and actors only as object of actions. I'm fine with that. So you can be an actor even if you are not completely the subject of an action. I'm game. And this means that women's life matter. No, it doesn't. It doesn't follow. This just means that women's life and women's choices, as well as men's lives and men's choices, are not to be understood only in terms of people who have power to be actors and people who don't, and they are acted on. So Angela Merkel's life falls into the self-agency camp. My life falls into the agent in my sphere, object in international politics. I cannot shape international politics, but I'm pretty sure I can choose where I live, more or less, according to my possibility. So they are trying, like, that is my point. What is self-agency? In this context, let's just say that I am Trump or I am like the leader of what is basically the last empire on earth, the USA. I theoretically can do anything, but that's not true, because act and possibility are what they are. What I have is not the ability to do anything, but more power than anybody else on earth to do something. But I still can defy gravity, for example. I might be as strong as this is becoming an issue of determinism and how free are we as humans. Okay, I'm fine with agents in politics are the ones that have to they have less constraints. The richer you are, the less you have to worry about rent and food and cleaning your own room and the cost of your education, for example, or the ability to do internships, unpaid internships, even if they are very, very prestigious, the UN internships, for example. So you have this kind of distinction, right? But that would imply that that would not imply like there is a disconnect here, because this is a, yes, it's a male thing, but it's also a class thing. If I were like richer enough to, like, it's a wealth thing with welcomes possibilities, and with possibilities in terms of practical ability to do something comes agency. It's just an issue of how much money do I have to pay to go home, and am I, given how much money I have, you can determine how much travel, so how much time I will be with my parents. 10 times richer, I could probably do the weekends at home. I can't. So that's an issue. The other issue is that okay, they have this agency part that is basically saying, regardless of what it's actually saying, I think that charitably we can argue that what they want is to say that the choice of a woman, of a group of women, are a matter of international politics as much as the choices of a world leader. Okay, I would need an example in details. Probably we would argue something like I don't know what an example of that would be, because yes, they're actors, but the collective ability, the individual ability to change your own surroundings, let's just use that as a meta. The ability of an individual to change its own surroundings. If you're Trump, you can you have an enormous ability to do that. If you're me, you can eat the food you make, and you can cook, and you decide where to shop, like less ability. If you are a collective of me, you can decide to boycott a product. Collective action, you know? So, okay. What they write here is that feminist interpretation of the personal as international has a lot to offer, because it suggests the woman's choice in one's life matter in global politics. In the abstract sense, or in the physical sense, in the practical sense. So, if I had to analyze a situation of a nation, or like, let's just take, if I had to analyze Europe, and you tell me this, should I think about what? Like, what does it mean that women's choices and lives matter in global politics? Individual women, so Angela Merkel matters? Yes, but she matters because she's a world leader, so she falls into the old categorization. In the new categorization, what should I watch out for? Women in Belarus? Okay, it's not technically Europe. Let's watch women in Belarus. That is an example of women's choices, life that matter. But don't they matter? Like, they fall into the old categories too, right? because they are a group of people, a massive group of people, is protesting, is a collective agent, even in the old sense. I just need an example of what this would mean, because it's really unclear what it means. If you say theoretically, like in an abstract sense, the people's life matter, I'm fine, but it has no repercussion, it has no implications, because yes, they matter, punto. Like, that's what it is. People matter. Next. If it is in a practical sense that I make a choice and it's an political international choice, that is not true. That is not true for anybody. It's not I have problem what Trump eats at breakfast. That's a choice, though. So I think this is not very explained. It's not explained. There is no meaning to these words. And then they follow with if women's choice and women's life matters, the governmental media portraits of women's choice have implication beyond the gender subordination inherent in those portrayals. So they're going from a tautological almost statement to description of actions matter because gendered roles exist. Again, I'm fine. And then they add, they're talking about the governmental media portraits of women's choices. They not only distort how we understand and treat women, but also we understand and try to solve political violence. And now I have a problem with this thought, because distortion implies that there is a possibility. Distortion is, if this is, let's just say, if this is the event, this is a distortion. So we're talking about the same thing, but one is the thing, the other is the portrayal of the thing, more or less, right? So distortion implies a true, not a true, but a more real narration. Distortion implies falsehood. Distortion is saying of A that it's AB, right? So now we have a problem, because in a patriarchal gendered world, yes, there is distortion. I'm fine. There is distortion in every narration. Okay. But guys, who is the arbiter of what is the real narration? Who is the truthful? What is the truthful utterance regarding event X? If event X is from the beginning an event that can be understood, narrated, or self-described only through utterances of X, and all utterances of X relate to circle a group of categories that are um, external, imposed, and patriarchal from the beginning. And this is assuming that we are assuming a world, with me we are assuming a world that is linguistic, in the sense that it's post-Kantian. There is no truth inherent in an X, there is no nomen. Okay? Because if we revert to truthful events or truthful things, then I'm out. There is no such a thing as a truthful thing. There is real, less real, there are qualities, but things are not truth. Truth is how do you say in English? Truth è una qualità, no? È attributo. What is attributo in English? I would like to know. But this is Kant. No, this is Aristotle. I think it should be attribute. Attribute or characteristic. I don't know how they translated Aristotle in English, sorry. But truth is an attribute of speech. A sentence, an utterance, can be true or false. Proposition are always true. Truthful, okay. But there is no case that you can convince me that a bed or a carpet or the sun are true or false. They are things. Things have no truth value. Okay? So when you tell me something like a narration distorts how we understand and treat women, distorts with respect to what? Is there a truer version of how we should understand women? Or is just something that always happens because everything is distorted? We all are distorted by languages. You see when I say there is a dualism implied here now, that it came out of nowhere. Okay, keep going, because too much time for too little words. This is because if women's lives and the portrayal of those lives matter, any understanding of political violence, political conflict, or even political global politics which neglects them is necessarily incomplete. Okay. Still, it doesn't follow one or the other. So, they're writing that a distortion of understanding of women's lives distorts our international action, because this distortion or the absence, even the absence of this consideration of women's lives creates an incomplete understanding. Okay, and what is wrong with that? Do we ever had any one of us, has any one of us humans ever had a complete understanding of something? Like about a small x? Like, do you ever have had a complete understanding of something you did? Or something about you? And I'm talking about complete understanding. So let's just talk about my finger. Do I have complete understanding of my feelings for my finger? The sensation that the fingers provides me, the biology, the physiology, the chemistry and physics of my finger, the meaning of my finger in a bigger context, pointing, finger pointing, or fingering if we want to be sexual now. Can I ever reach a complete understanding of this? No. Do I use it? Am I fine when using it? Am I at ease with using my fingers? Yes. Do I know my fingers? Basically not. No, I'm not here to do a big fan mail, but here we are. Husas fan mail. Okay. I really don't want to disturb other people. I'm sorry, I have to close my door now. Wait a second. The good of living in a small room, you don't have much when you are like cuddled in your blanket. So we all agree that complete understanding is not a necessity. What I mean here, I mean for sure, because I'm trying to be charitable regardless of the jumps and the argument, is that this type of understanding of the world would not be enough to correctly operate. It's just saying that it misses a very important part. So in the case of my finger, it would be if I know everything about my finger, for example, if I knew everything, but I lost a nerve, like here, I think, I don't know if it's this, but I had an incident with ceramic plate, and now basically I feel less in this zone of my finger. It's super weird, but it just doesn't have the same response. I feel less. So they're saying something like this. They're saying you feel less, and therefore you are less reactive. Like if this was a bigger issue and I could not move my finger, or if the nails were so impacted that I could not feel if something is hot or cold, that would impair my use of my finger. So they are talking about incomplete understanding. They are meaning incomplete operability. It's not usable the same way. You know, if someone has memory of Heidegger, this is how a thing can be used. They say this thing is not usable. It misses important points. The narratives about the violent women in this book and their influence in global politics demonstrate that any theory of global politics must take account of gendered stories and the interaction between actual and sensationalized stories of gender to create the dominant narratives of international politics. Okay, but that's nothing new, right? We have stories on media, right? As Moon argues, and now we have the quote, key is to pinpoint which women, at what time, in what gendered way are identified with the politics of a foreign policy issue. This is one of the reasons why Cinzia and Law, as we discussed in the introduction, has focused on the meaningfulness of seemingly private conduct. Okay. Let's assume and they write and keep going. At the same time, the shaping of global politics by the lives of women is not a one-way street. No, I just want to go back a little because they want to talk about gender stories and interaction between actual and sensational stories of gender in this book through but if that's true, then you are singling out individuals in the same way as you single out individuals in global politics, whether they're male or women, right? I'm not completely sold on the project because it feels like it has crumbling foundations. Let's keep going. Women's life are global politics, but so are stylized narrative about those women produced outside of their knowledge and consent. Often, global politics also shapes women's life. Recognizing global politics and women's life as having a bidirectional co-constructive relationship suggests that the notion of actors the literacy often uses oversimplified. I'm kind of worried about what notion of actors theorists use because actor, okay, there are two cases here. First, they are recapping this bidirectionality because everybody knows it, but it doesn't seem like. It feels like, ooh, big news, and that is my worry, because if it is a big news that object and subject, not that the world is intersubjective, if it is a big news that being part of the world is being changed by the world and at the same time is changing the world, then we have a bigger problem. This is called actually ontology here. What notion of actors literatures use that it doesn't imply that an actor is acted by others in its society? Those are the basics, right? Object, subject, intersubjectivity. I'm not asking to know David's own, I'm asking to at least remember either. No? Intersubjectivity. Of course, of course, we are made by what we've been taught, our language, the cases of our lives. Of course, we are acted. We are object of something. Of course, we are determinati. That, oh God, English is failing me now. Of course, other things determine how we are. Genetic, education, parents, grandparents. What happens when you were 5 years old, you don't remember, but it matters. Of course, this is obvious, right? Being an actor doesn't mean being an absolute entity that is not bound by physics and language and its own history, because that actor is God. And I'm not joking, I'm saying that the definition of an absolute actor is in philosophy, the Christian God that has been created and theorized as an absolute actor. Omniscient, absolute, those adjectives that are attributed to God in Christian theology, they determine it, they define an entity that has that qualities. Doesn't mean that said entities actually exist outside of being an idea, but that's another issue. Okay. No, what I mean is there is no actor that is not bound by everything in life. So, what they're saying is something that should not even be, that should be obvious. That is implied in the notion of actor. A subject implies an object, but also implies being bound. There is no subject that is not bound by something. Come on. There is no actual free decision in the sense of I had infinite possibilities. No, you don't. I can't decide. This should be given ideas, because are basics of categories that need to be common knowledge, It should be common knowledge that the relationship between you and society is bidirectional. It should be common knowledge that an actor is in his actions, and the context of his actions is the action and the context of the action bidirectional entities, if not only because an action without a context is not an action. I cannot decide to invade another nation if I am a world leader if there isn't another nation. Just the basics, So why I refuse to believe that a category of action in any theory can be that stupid and idiotic. So, who are they raging against? Who is the counter voice? Who is saying that actors are absolute entities that can do whatever they want, regardless of the context in which they live? Who is saying that? I hope nobody. In that context, there would not be action. There would be creation. That is God, the context of what is defined as Christian God. And I'm fine with that, but that's not political action, by definition. So I'm kind of shocked that they're talking about this and they are making this big show of the bidirectionality as if it's new or a notion big enough to be underlined because it was implied. It's always been the implication. If I were richer, the whole rent from before, that's always like, what are we talking about before if this arrives now? Okay, let's assume rich actor. Let's assume they're right and keep going. As Moon mentioned, people can be actors and work politics with or without influencing the ultimate or secondary intention of the state. Okay, so they are arguing against a neo-functional or realist interpretation. No, not even realist, more neo-functional, neo-realist interpretation of state action and actor. Even then, realists do not believe the actors are absolute. Otherwise, why study history? Okay, next. People can also act within constraints, within limited spheres, as a group and collectives. No, people can only act within constraints, within limited spheres, and as a group and collectives. There is no entity that you can define as individual that can act without constraints. Period. There is no alternative. There are only constraints. Constraints are what make us free. This is absurd. You cannot write this and pretend that I take you seriously though, because also, what is the opposition? An entity, a person who acts without constraints. Who is that? The one who defies gravity? The one who doesn't speak his own language? The one who kills people? But no, that's with constraints. What is without constraints? God? What does it mean within limited sphere? Can you act without a limited sphere? Can Trump decide what will happen on Mars? What does that mean? There is no alternative. We are a finite entity. We can only act within constraints, within a sphere, as a group or a collective. There is no other option for humans. yeah, man, like let's just assume that they're trying to say that this is how world leaders act, but that's not true. Can Kim Jong-un, world leader, also almost without constraint, he has absolute power, act without a limited sphere? No. At the most he has like atomic bombs, but it is still a limited sphere. It cannot decide what China, for example, policy will be. Why? What does it mean? Not even the most powerful person on earth can act without a limited sphere. I mean, some spheres are bigger than others, but that's the measure of your power. The bigger your sphere, the bigger your power. Jeff Bezos has arguably a bigger sphere in terms of what can do, but still, if he cancels, he will not be able to cancel, for example, state postal services. It would fail. It would bankrupt. So, what does that? What the fuck? Okay, let's assume that they are doing this for a reader who doesn't know, who didn't think about this. And let's rewrite the last one. So people can only act within constraint, within limited sphere, and as a group of collectives. Happy about this? Yes. This is a better editor. As a result, military that accounts for the meaning of personal life in global politics must at the same time account for people's impact on global politics and the impact of narratives other construct for and about them. Yeah, no, I mean, how? Is this a theory? Okay. This is the theory, any description that accounts according to this theory. Really? Oh god, they have problems here. Any description according to this theory is to account for the bidirectionality and the narration of the bidirectionality. I'm fine with that. So they just say that translating this in practical work, they do quantitative analysis, history, collection of newspaper, collection of tweets, and so on. Like, if this becomes a study, let's study its international global politics, let's study Belarus. Then, to understand that, you have to talk about Lukashenko, you have to talk about the protests, you have to talk about how the state media narrated the protests, how international media narrated the protests, and so on. Because a lot of people, I think, forget that the easiest and most reasonable way, seriously, to understand things is to go through history. They try, like international relations, try to do something, but it's just history. History is the, like, I hate to be negative in this, but history solves the problem. Nothing. Okay. So we were talking about this. Such an account recognizes both that the women in this book matter in global politics and that the story serves as a powerful critique of traditional notions of both what it means to act in global politics and how action comes to matter. Though there is not much theorizing about this issue in disciplinary IR, there is some. For example, constructivist theorist Alexander Wendt 1999, suggests that people are causing influence in global politics. Okay, it's not like I I need like you're okay, but must be constitutional and independent. That was the quote. Studying women's life generally and women's life specific and global politics suggests that the assumption of constitutional independence is gendered. By their construction, social behavior and rules come to constitute not only what women are allowed to do, however, but also what they are allowed to be. Ishman 2004. It suggests that such constraints on women's social behavior can be visible in accounts of people's political dynamics. Okay. Because they're making my mind really in a bad way. First off, are we sure that Alexander was suggested people are council influence in global politics and not women's? But okay, I'm fine with this. What I want to ask is, do we need to wait to Alexander event in 1999 to suggest that global politics, that people have influence on global politics? Because what can I say? What the fuck? Global politics is being influenced and made by people since it's, people's history. Are you telling me that you can argue that before 1999 or it's not always been about people? Like, is global politics not about people's choices? Are you telling me that nation as an entity has been not understood as a product of people's lives, economy, politics? Are we saying that you study history, you get to the Roman Empire, you get to Alexander the Great, and you think, well, it's a matter of states and nations? What the fuck? Okay. It doesn't say why constitutional independence is gendered, but I will let it pass because, everything is gendered, so next. I have no problem with that. If you say to me that, supermarkets are gendered, okay. I'm fine with that. No problem. We can find, we live in gendered societies. Gender roles matter. Gender roles determine the self-narration and external narration of each and every role that we have as women, men, and the rainbow in between. So, yes, fine with that. You should, it's pacific, I have no problem. But I want to ask, the construction of social behaviors and rules constitute not only what women are allowed to do, but what they are allowed to be. This has been, if you think about Kate Manners' analysis of patriarchy, that is that. But Kate Manners does it better. And her analysis doesn't touch global politics, but it touches individual sphere. We suggest that such constraints on women's social behavior what does it mean? Social behavior. Women's behavior and women's behavior in society. Because we are social animals. It's always a social behavior. If it's a behavior, it's social. Like, maybe they say they mean as opposed to what behavior? Whatever. Are clearly visible in accounts of people's political violence. Okay. So they argue that how we understand and narrate women is not a complete account, and that can be seen specifically when we talk about women's violence, and this is the point. But I mean, and also they are missing the point when we talk about actors. Actors are acted. There is a gender role is not as okay, a social enforced gender role is socially enforced through education from the beginning. So the point is not that the gender roles of what a woman should do force from the external, from the outside, how a woman behaves. Is that the gender roles of what a woman should do force from the inside how a woman behaves. Again, read Kate Mann. I at this point, I think like Down Girl and Entitled are really good books that explain all of this way better than these guys are trying to pull off. So, okay, all this argument is missing pieces and it's basing itself on big assumptions that are not justified, and it has inexplicable moments of eureka on look, the water is wet. I mean, they like la scopata dell'acqua calda is in Italian. Like they found out that water is like hot water, or it means that they found out something that is obvious and everybody knows. Because it's obvious and everybody knows, instinctively we know that yes, I decide on something, but that does depend on the fact that I can decide on something. You cannot, for example, let's just say a case that apparently is not happening to me, and I don't think will happen because Corona, but like you cannot choose between two jobs offers if you don't have two jobs offers. Let us be clear. A world leader cannot choose between bombing and making peace if it doesn't have the option of bombing and making peace. Full stop. It's as easy as that. Everybody gets that. Everybody gets that society forces you into something. Every woman gets that society at some point pushes you to have kids. It's there. It's in the air. We all know that. Like, it's obvious, right? So, we know what we've been told. We've been told what to do and we've been told what we are. We are the thing that makes kids. Yay! patriarchy. But like, isn't that an obvious thing? It's pretty obvious, right? Quite obvious. And here I think we should stop because there were like 3 pages and I rambled on for 1 hour. I should try to be a lot more charitable and go faster while reading. But seriously, it's mind-boggling how some issues are skipped or and some others are focused on, but in a way that really makes you wonder, what are they talking about? Who are they arguing against? Because the identity they're arguing against, nobody would write that. That's nobody parla, that's a straw man. You're arguing against a straw man when you should have better argument and better ability to express your idea that is not creating a straw man that argues that people can act without constraints. It's an action. An action without constraint is a creation. An action with constraints is an action. It refers to an object, it refers to a context, it refers to things that are that can be done. Like, this cannot be something that someone said. So why the straw man? Let's see how this goes. Maybe the stories of killer women have been really funny. I mean, we all love Medea, so 50-50 I was with Clytemnestra because fuck Agamemnon, fucking Polyphigenia. So yes, why not? But like, it's exhausting to read something and think, what? That doesn't track. It doesn't follow. Nobody argues that. And you're trying to argue for a point completely wrong, going completely in the wrong direction. I don't know, it's just disappointing. Let's see how that goes.